Yo, what up guys? Welcome to True North Automotive, where we help you find your vehicle's true north. Now today we're going to be doing lower control arms, axles, a 3-inch lift on the front and then a 2 in the rear, so it'll be nice and level, lift it up a little bit, as well as I will be doing tires and alignment, but that will be later on because I'm not going to do that at my work, just because we don't have a tire machine and alignment rack. So obviously to get started, we're going to be doing the lower control arms that are right here. I was talking to the owner of this truck, and originally he had something playing around on the front end. I had told him that was lower control arms. At the time he just mentioned that he wants to lift it, so I said let's take care of it all. So right here is the front and the rear with brand new U-bolts, and we have axles. Now one thing I recommend is when you lift up your truck, do everything that you can. Axles, inner and outer tie rods, lower, upper control arms, all of it. Because once you lift your vehicle, everything is going to be at different angles and it's going to put a lot of stress on it and let it wear out really quickly. I remember when I first lifted my truck, my axles were gone the same day, which is not good. Another thing is too, I totally forgot to mention, we have inner and outer tie rods. So with these GMCs, they do have a problem with tie rods going out like crazy. It's just a truck. I would recommend upgrading them, but upgrading them can be expensive, so we're just going to replace them to get that longevity out of these inner and outer tie rods. So let's get this truck lifted up and get going on it. It's a more familiar motion. What up guys, we're going to start off on the left side. The right side was taken care of, it's the next day now. I had worked on the right side to get that side all taken care of, kind of go through the truck and understand the process of doing the replacement of everything as well as doing the lift. Every truck's a little separate and you kind of got to figure out the little weird quirks of getting everything in the right way. So we're on the left side. Luckily Trent, yesterday, what he was helping me out, he went through this whole left side and broke everything loose. So it'll be nice and easy. And don't believe everything you see on the internet, because obviously he broke everything loose. We had some problems, and I'll show you the problems when I get there. Because between doing that side, other vehicles coming in and everything, that side took a lot longer than this side will. But the main problems were on this side. I'll go through it and show you how to fix them and how I was able to get everything out. So first thing we're going to do to get everything ready is we want to disconnect anything that's around this area, because this whole area is coming out. Alright, so we're going to start off with taking out the rotor. So we want to get this out the way. We don't want this, the brake lines hanging or in our way. So we're going to take the bracket bolts out, loosen up the caliper first, use a screwdriver, put it inside the caliper, squeeze it a little bit, just to loosen it up. Before I remove it, I'm going to disconnect this bracket over here that is supporting the brake line, just so we have a lot more play. I'm just going to support it on the sway bar, get this out the way. So the main problem that we had yesterday was the bracket bolts were all rounded off. So what we had to do was, I have these special removers for when the heads get rounded off, but as well as they were seized up within the bracket. So we took the whole caliper apart and we heated up the bracket itself, so helped get these bolts out nice and easily. And I do have other bolts to replace these two bad ones. All right, now to get the rotor off. We have a T30 bolt we have to get out so this rotor can come free. You pull the rotor off and put it to the side. Now I'm going to loosen up the ABS cord. So we're going to remove it because this whole spindle will be getting removed once you get the upper and lower control arm out, so we can replace it all. Pull the nut off, get this little cap out, then pull the nut off the axle. There we go. Perfect. Nice and loose already. We didn't even loosen that up before, but that's good that the axle is loose and is moving. Okay, so next we're going to remove the inner and outer tie rod, but first I want to break everything loose. The nut's loose. I want to break the inner tie rod from the outer tie rod. Everything's loose. Let's remove this outer from the spindle. Just like that, smooth. Next thing that we can remove is the upper control arm. These will be 21 or 19. Like it. Now I'm going to try to break this free with my hands, but if not, I'm most likely going to remove the axle and then use a impact to really zing it out. See if we can pull this axle out. Oh, alright, that's fine. Alright, next we're going to remove the spindle completely. We're going to do the lower ball joint. Hopefully this one comes out just as easy. Probably won't. Knock on wood, hopefully. Right, we're whacking a little bit because it's not seeming like it wants to move. We're going to give it a couple more whacks. If it doesn't want to move after a couple more whacks, we're going to heat it up. Hopefully that'll be enough. Now, normally I would not recommend using heat on stuff like this, especially because of the lower ball joint and there's a rubber boot on the lower ball joint that when you heat it up, it can melt the boot and ruin it. The only reason I'm doing this is I don't really care about the boot because we are replacing this lower control arm. Perfect. Our next method is we're going to remove the axle. Then we're going to remove the strut to the lower control arm, and then we will remove the lower control arm, and then the strut, the inner tie rod, and then we're basically going to reverse everything till it's back together, and then we can really do the real fight of doing the lift in the front and trying to get everything together, because when you are lifting everything, everything is at different distances and different tolerances. It's really hard to get everything in the right spot. So yeah, let's go. So I don't think we'll be able to get the axle out just yet. So I'm gonna loosen up this lower control arm to the strut and loosen up the sway bar and like. Now we'll be working on getting the top bolts of the strut off. You can do it from inside the hood or the engine bay, but I'm able to reach my tiny little fingers in there and get the bolts out, no problem. So one thing I always recommend when you're working in tight spaces like this is this bolt right in the front is super easy to get to. So I'm leaving that for last because this strut will be dropping, so I'm gonna need both my hands, one to support the strut as well as one to loosen up that nut. So it's super easy to get to and I'm not struggling to get to the bolt in the back while holding up the strut. It just makes your life a little bit easier. Now the strut's out, we're gonna work on the inner tie rod. First we're gonna pull off this nut. It's pretty stuck on there, so I'm gonna get some wrenches. Now we're gonna pull this little clip off. Got myself a pair of pliers. I'm gonna grab myself a different pair of pliers. So those are broken. Alright, now we're gonna get the inside hoop clip off. So normally you would want to use a tool for this, the right tool. I do not have it, and I don't have a wrench of this size. Wait, maybe I do. Hold on. Never mind. Nope, too small. Yeah, so I do not have a wrench of this size, so I'm just going to use, the lights probably don't help. I don't have a wrench of this size, so what I'm gonna use is a pipe wrench, and it'll just get it off, no problem. Keep on hitting this thing. It's in my workspace. All right, this is a little tight. Let me turn the wheel so it points, so it comes out a little bit and have enough room to loosen it up. Nice and loose. Now we can take out the lower control arm. Right. Everything's apart. All right, so now we're gonna be doing the assembly part. I already put the inner tie rod in. I had done that when my GoPro had died. But I just started off with doing that just to get it right out the way. So we're gonna do, first we're gonna do a lower control arm, get it set in place when I can tighten anything down, because obviously we'll have to swing it up, get it in position, and then tighten it down. So let's try to get this thing in. That's in. Let's do the strut next. So we have the strut assembly. And then this is the 3-inch spacer. Let me find it. There we go. Do that. And came with brand new nuts for the strut, so get those on right where they need to be. Now, I did not cross thread them, just in case anybody was thinking that. These do have nylon lockers on them, so the bolts or the nuts don't back out over time. So they're good and tight now. What we're gonna do is, once we insert the strut, we have these bolts with, I don't know what size, oh, I do, right here. It is going to be a 8mm. So, one thing I did do, it came with these bolts, but it didn't come with any washers, and I did not like how it sat on the, like within the bolt holes, so I did get washers for it. So if you do get a kit like this, and it doesn't come with washers, I'd recommend washers so it sits nice and flush, because the hole that the bolt will go through is almost the same diameter as the head of this, which I did not like. So if you do get it, get some washers. So let's go throw it in the truck now. So I just hit these bolts with a little bit of never sees. We live in New England, and our vehicles, well, anybody in the Rust Belt, you know, our vehicles rust, and trying to get a bolt out is no fun. So I made sure to give these things a little bit of never sees, just give them a little touch of it, nothing too crazy. So if I ever have to take it out, or the customer of this truck ever has to take them out, they're not busting their ass trying to get them out. So with these being bolts, what I like to do is just throw them in place on where they need to be. Grab the third one, because I forgot one. Receive stuff. Alright, so now they're home, so once I pick up the strut, it's best if you do it with 2 people, but I'm all by myself right now, so I'm just gonna do it by myself, and you guys can watch the see how this goes. Those 2 are in, so I'm just gonna try to tighten them up a little bit. And then I'll get that third one in. So that third one I think fell out. Right, now they're all snugged up. I'll go through, once the truck, I like to do is once the truck is on the ground and there's a lot of weight on it, then I like to go through with just a ratchet and make sure that they are good and tight. So I'll do that at the end. Now one thing that I've noticed is when you put, I'm actually loosen this up. when you put the spacer on, it kind of reverses the strut. I'm not sure if you're supposed to switch them, but instead of this angling down, it angles this side up. So what I do is, I can have my adjustable and tighten it up. Try to give a little bit of force just to bend it the other way, which makes it easier to drive the bolts through. I'm actually going to loosen up the top just so it makes this easier to get in place of these bolt bolts. Alright, there we go. Both bolts are lined up. Give these bolts a little touch of some, I keep on forgetting I have my headlights on. I'm going to give these bolts a little touch of some Never Sees. Still not lining up perfect, so I'm going to hit it again. See if it makes a difference. Oh, this doesn't fit. So next up, we're going to throw the axle in. Now that has somewhere to support it, so it's not just hanging there and putting too much pressure on its joints. Now this is something that you definitely want to do with two people, but once again, I'm all by myself, so I'm going to make it work with what I got. Alright, so all those bolts are snugged up. I want to make sure the axle is still in place. All those bolts are snugged up. I'm going to tighten them, but I'm going to do it later on because if I tried to, this axle would just spin. The best way to do it when you're breaking them free, when you're tightening them, is have somebody with a pry bar. When you have the spindle on, put it right on the wheel bearing to hold it tight while you go and tighten up all those bolts. I'm gonna put this away for later. Once we get the spindle on, then we'll put that on. But yeah, actually I think the next point is the spindle. So let's get some things ready for that. So a touch of some Never Sees. Sees up. And I'm gonna do the same with the splines. Just a little bit. Just so if you ever have to push the axle out, you're not beating it with a hammer or air hammer and messing it up. Let me tighten up that lower ball joint. We're going to put a pin in it so it doesn't loosen up on us. Alright, so now that the spindle is in, we're going to do the upper control arm. We're going to do the upper control arm, and then after that, we're going to leave the ball joint out. We are going to compress the spring. Because of the lift, it pushes the spring a lot lower, which makes everything kind of separated. So you really got to squish it together. in order to get the upper ball joint in. So luckily we have a spring compressor. I had to go and get one because I didn't have one. Last time I done a lift, I had used a friend. So yeah, let's get to it. Whenever you're installing new parts, one thing that you always want to do is to make sure that they are exactly the same. There's nothing worse than putting a new part in and then you try to line everything up and it doesn't work because the part is wrong. So always make sure everything is the same and what's coming out is going to fit when you put the new one in. So put the upper control arm into its home. Go into your home. You're too good for your home. That's an Adam Sandler reference, if you know what I mean. So, one thing you always want to remember, I'm actually going to clean these up. Just especially the threads, because they were kind of a little grindy when coming out. But make sure that you put certain hardware, especially like this, the way that it came out. So obviously the bolt goes through. Because if it came the other way, you've noticed that it would hit the spring and that would not be good. So let me go clean these up and then I'll be right back. All right, bolts are all cleaned up and they're ready to go back in. I didn't mark them or tried to remember which side goes which, but they are exactly the same, which is good. So, hold on. So one thing I kind of just realized is I should have put in the upper control arm in the strut and then the lower control arm. It probably would have made putting these bolts in a lot easier, but it's something I just now realized. And I'll be able to get the bolts in, but it would have made my life a lot easier. So, but hey, you live and you learn, right? The only reason I'm doing that, I'm not going crazy tight because I am going to do an alignment on this. I just want to make sure that these camber plates or whatever you're going to call them aren't just flopping around all over the place. So I'm going to do the same on the top, this front one. Alright, nice and snug. Still able to move it. Perfect. Sweet. Now let's get the spring compressors on. We'll compress the spring and we'll be able to get this upper ball joint in. See if we can compress the spring a little bit now. Seems like we still got a little ways to go. So the reason I'm not just jacking up the jack is because once the spring gets to a certain compression, it's just gonna lift up the truck and we need a lot more than what the jack would just compress it to. So let's keep going. And the truck is like just off the jack stand, which is good because as I compress it, it'll slowly go back down onto the jack stand. So sadly the camera had died while I was doing everything, but I was able to get everything in, but I waited just to show you guys what happened. So as we compressed the spring, it was able to bring the lower control arm up and allowed me to push this nice and far down. I was able to get a couple threads in. Once I got a couple threads in, I was able to tighten up the bolt to suck everything up. So you can see right here, I had spring compressors on both sides so you can make sure you can compress it completely. It is really difficult when it's in the vehicle because everything is just in your way. I ended up having to loosen this side up because it was in the way of the upper control arm. But now everything's in, I can loosen it up and tighten everything down. Before I tighten it up, I left the other side loose, so the sway bar is loose, and I can just tighten it all up together, and I don't have to worry about trying to fight one side. It's easier that way, especially when you're lifting a truck. The sway bar is not going to be at the same height as it was before. Just run over to the other side and tighten that side down too. Alright, now the last part is one of the last parts is putting the brakes back together. Easy as that. All right, so now everything is completely together. We're gonna go through everything, all the bolts, nuts, everything one time, just to make sure it's all tight. And then after I drive it a little bit and put on the lift for the alignment, I'm gonna tighten everything once again, just to make sure that everything is just at the tightness that it needs to be. And obviously torque down any very important parts. So, but no one wants to see me doing that, so I'll see you in the back.
Pause.
Oh, hell yeah, squatted. All right, I'll tell him, give me half the money and we'll leave it squatted for him. All right guys, so now we are in the back. We're gonna be doing 2-inch spacers back here in the rear. So plan of attack is first I'm gonna loosen up the struts just so we can have as much troop as possible for when we put the blocks in, as well as super easy or easier in the rear. And then we will put the jack underneath. We'll drop down this one side until we have enough area where we can put in the block, jack it back up, and put in the new U-bolts and tighten it down. Hopefully it's easier. It's easier said than done, but hopefully it is easy. So yeah, let's get to it.
You got the others from this side, or I'm up on this side?
So we're gonna have to disconnect or loosen this up. Take a look underneath. All right. A little bit more. So close, perfect. All right, now bring it up. I think I have to remove that small one. Let me get my torque wrench, torque it down. All right, well, it's easy as that. Not crazy difficult like the front was, but it went pretty smooth. Had a little bit of things to figure out. But yeah, I'm gonna take care of the other side and then I'll show you the final result. All right, so I just dropped it down and this is the final result. Front suspension does have to settle a little bit, so it does look a little squatted. All right, yo, what up guys? It's the next day. I got the tires put on, alignment, everything is doing amazing. So I just wanted to show off, look at these things. They are looking absolutely beautiful. We got the Mud Hogs on that thing. You know what I'm talking about? Clean on the inside, mud on the outside. That's how this thing's gonna be rolling on from here on out. It's still got that OEM ride quality, but nice and smooth down the road. It stays straight. Did the alignment on it, it was a pain in the butt. So now anybody that is doing a lift with their trucks and everything, just know that nothing is going to feel the exact same afterwards. Your alignment is going to be messed up and it will be a real struggle to get everything absolutely perfect. So when the engineers create the vehicle, they are not engineering the vehicle with this kind of lift. So when you change it all up, you are completely changing the geometry of the suspension. So you are actually in a fight with it. Now, truly, if you want the best way to do a actual lift, it would be doing a lower control arm, upper control arm, spindles, axles, the whole shebang with one company. So like you'd go with Total Chaos, but then you'll be spending, man, about 10 grand. So just keep that in mind if you ever do this to your own vehicle. But after a long fight, I was able to get it as close as possible, and it does drive straight down the road, which I'm super happy about. Another thing is too is these Mud Hogs, they are not a name brand. Talking about like Michelin, Falcon, Goodyear. So these things were a pain in the butt to balance. So make sure that if you want a good ride with your tires and everything, make sure to go to a notable brand, like ones I just named, so you can get the best balance, and honestly, it's the best quality for your vehicle. But that's it. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you within the next build. Keep moving north.